Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates the 46th UNESCO World Heritage Committee meeting in New Delhi, announces $1 million US dollar grant, that is, and he says that India is committed to engaging global and local communities towards heritage conservation. Bangladesh Supreme Court strikes down government job quota system, reduces reservations to 7%. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli wins a trust vote in Parliament, gets 188 votes in his government's favour. And India edged closer to the semi-finals with a comfortable win over the UAE by 78 runs in the women's T20 Asia Cup. Also, Indian legends Leander Paes and Amritraj make history by joining the Tennis Hall of Fame. The 46th UNESCO World Heritage Committee meeting has begun in New Delhi. It did so today, that's Sunday, and it's going to continue till the 31st of this month. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the 46th UNESCO World Heritage Committee meeting in New Delhi, and he announced a $1 million US dollar grant for the organization. While speaking at this meeting, the Prime Minister said that India is committed to engaging both global as well as local communities towards heritage conservation. He highlighted India's rich cultural heritage.
बीते 10 वर्षों में भारत ने एक और आधुनिक विकास के नए आयाम छुए हैं, वहीं विरासत पर गर्व का संकल्प भी लिया है। हमने विरासत के संरक्षण के लिए अभूतपूर्व कदम उठाए हैं। काशी में विश्वनाथ कॉरिडोर हो, अयोध्या में राम मंदिर का निर्माण हो, प्राचीन नालंदा विश्वविद्यालय का आधुनिक कैंपस बनाना हो, देश के कोने-कोने में ऐसे अनेकों काम हो रहे हैं। विरासत को लेकर भारत के इस संकल्प में पूरी मानवता की सेवा का भाव जुड़ा है।
Well, the meeting is hosting archaeologists and culture ministers from across the globe. This prestigious event is being held at the Bharat Mandapam, and it brings together delegates from around the world to discuss and deliberate on the preservation of cultural and natural heritage sites. Prime Minister Modi stated that India's history and civilization are much more ancient and extensive than commonly understood.
भारत का इतिहास और भारतीय सभ्यता ये सामान्य इतिहास बोध से कहीं ज्यादा प्राचीन और व्यापक है। इसलिए जैसे-जैसे नए तथ्य सामने आ रहे हैं, जैसे-जैसे इतिहास का वैज्ञानिक वेरिफिकेशन हो रहा है, हमें अतीत को देखने के नए दृष्टिकोण विकसित करने पड़ रहे हैं।
The Government of India convened an all-party meeting ahead of the budget session of India's Parliament in Delhi today. And during this meeting, the government has sought cooperation from all political parties to ensure the smooth functioning of both the houses of Parliament. Union Ministers Rajnath Singh, Kiren Rijiju, Arjun Ram Meghwal, JP Nadda, Chirag Paswan, Ramdas Athavale, and Congress leaders Jairam Ramesh and Gaurav Gogoi, the NCP leader Praful Patel, the DMK leaders TR Balu and Tiruchi Siva, the Aam Aadmi Party leader Sanjay Singh, The AIMIM MP Asauddin Owaisi were among those who attended this meeting. Speaking to the media after this meeting, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju, he said that there was a consensus by all the parties on the running of the House smoothly in the forthcoming budget session.
पार्लियामेंट को सुचारू रूप से चलाना ये सरकार में जो है उनका भी जिम्मेदारी है और विपक्ष में जो सदस्य है उनका भी जिम्मेदारी है। हम मिल करके अच्छी तरह से बजट सेशन को चलाएंगे, ऐसा हमारा अपील है। और सबका मेंबर्स का बहुत सारा विषय इन्होंने सजेशन किया है, हम उसका सेंस को समझते हुए राज्यसभा में आदरणीय चेयरमैन और लोकसभा में आदरणीय स्पीकर दोनों से चर्चा करके बिजनेस एडवाइजरी कमेटी के बैठक में हम इसको आगे कैसे ले जाना है आगे चर्चा करेंगे।
Khadak Prasad Sharma Oli has sailed through the trust vote in Nepal. In fact, he won by over two-thirds majority. And this, however, is still a coalition government, and its true success would depend on how he keeps his allies involved in decision-making. Shweta Singh and Mihir Makuri report on the new dispensation in Nepal.
In a major political victory, Nepal's newly appointed Prime Minister Khadak Prasad Sharma Oli easily won a vote of confidence in Parliament on Sunday. This triumph follows Oli's recent swearing-in as the leader of a new coalition government. The vote solidifies Oli's position and underscores his strong support within the legislative body. During voting in the House of Representatives, the lower house of Nepal's parliament, Oli secured 188 votes out of 263 members present. In contrast, 74 members voted against the proposal. PM Oli's backing came from members of his own Communist Party of Nepal, Unified Marxist-Leninist, the main coalition partner, Nepali Congress, and several smaller parties. In a speech during the floor test, Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli pledged to investigate the corruption scams and irregularities reported at any period, prosecuting those responsible for them. This is the fourth time that 72-year-old Oli is serving as Prime Minister of the Himalayan nation. This comes after Oli was named Nepal's Prime Minister last week after the previous coalition government collapsed after his party withdrew support earlier this month. His biggest challenge now as Prime Minister will be balancing Nepal's relationship with its neighbors India and China. With inputs from Shweta Singh, Mihir Makuri, reporting for DD India.
And going back to our story on the 46th World Heritage Committee meeting that's taking place in Delhi, joining us is Dr. Hiraman Tiwari, who is a professor of Indian culture and history at JNU. Thank you very much, Professor Tiwari.
Pleasure.
You know, from Guru Purnima to several examples of India's rich cultural and civilizational heritage, the Prime Minister's speech, you know, seemed to have covered several reasons why India should be the leader in cultural preservation. How best can this be taken forward?
Yes, absolutely. As you said in your intro, the Prime Minister has covered a very, very large gamut of things which represent India's heritage and culture. And of course, as you know, heritage has a very, very wide meaning if it is seriously considered, not only in terms of the cultural artifacts, but also India's architecture, India's traditions, India's various religious traditions. In all religions, India is rich in many ways, not only in the building and the architecture on the temples, mosques, and churches and whatnot over the centuries. It has a very, very long tradition. Therefore, and then on top of that, you have these fine arts of various kinds, whether it is dance or drama or literature. So India is very well known around the world for having such a vast variety of cultural heritage, monumental heritage, and the heritage that we have from generations today in various fields, be it agriculture or even in writing and reading, in philosophy, and various great
Yes.
people have happened and have come to this world, like the Buddha, like Mahavira, and all other religions which have touched India and touched India deeply. Their, of course, philosophy and science is now part of our cultural heritage. So therefore, this conference, of course, is extremely important that India is hosting, and Indians and scholars, archaeologists and scientists and all kinds of experts in the field of cultural heritage, political heritage, and historical heritage of all kinds, they need to ponder and ruminate how best not only to preserve it, but also to make it
Right.
prosper and well known around the world.
Indeed. Professor Tiwari, also to what extent, can heritage teach us science? The Prime Minister today spoke about, the iron pillar in Delhi and how it hasn't rusted, over 1,600 years old. And the water management also, he talked about areas in Gujarat, I think Dholavir. So, I mean, you can tell us a little bit about how we can learn some science from heritage.
Well, see, we can read the modern science backward. That is one way of doing it. But if you want to be honest about how we learn about science and the management, as you said, of water management, not only in Gujarat, but Karnataka and other part of the regions in the country. And science, as you said, the iron pillar near Qutub Minar is a sort of World Heritage piece. So we need to see what kind of chemical understanding or the understanding of chemistry and physics and biology that these ancient Indians had, and whatever they did at that time appears remarkable, sounds remarkable. It passes the test of even the time today. So this is one way of looking at it, that within the limited resources and means and technology, if they could do it, today that we have so much technology, world technology, Indian technology at our disposal, perhaps we could further that and even understand and study and appreciate it. So, I mean, it would not be a very promising idea or rather very convincing idea to say that ancient had every technology and everything which we use today. That would be proper. But for their time, for example, the art of writing, the art of memorizing things,
Yes.
or the water management you mentioned yourself in ancient India, in medieval India, throughout all the scientists and agriculture science.
Yes.
So there are so many, what kind of tools they devise to grow crop and to do many things and build. In ancient period in the Vedas, the mention is made of making bricks so that a particular platform is built, and jewelry of women that we find in various sites, archaeologists have discovered. So there are many things that we can learn. But I am not the one who simply say that the ancient Indians or people had the science which we are using all today. They had whatever the science they had at that time. They excelled in it, perhaps excelled around the world, and that is one way to look at it.
Professor Tiwari, our cultural studies catching up as a subject, and do you see this bringing the world closer and also dealing with some of the most difficult questions like environmental decay and climate change?
That's an excellent question. This is something that I didn't come to my mind until you asked me. The environmental decadence that we witness today, most of the ancient texts are very much concerned about water, about the forest, about what it does. And if you go back to the Vedic rituals, most of the rituals are celebrating these metaphysical aspects and elements that we even deal today. We can look at them scientifically, measure them most appropriately. But at that time, the kind of imaginative ideas that these ancestors of ours had in understanding the world and trying to find a way to not only to survive, but also to preserve the concern for the forest. The texts like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata are absolutely full of the ideas how not to harm. And one thing, whether one fully appreciates it or not, I would say that ancient Indians, the whole idea of trying to consider every element, every animal, bird, worthy of worship, that in itself says that there is an empathic understanding there is an understanding of the element which we use today and how we should not harm it. And now billions of dollars are spent not only in researching, but organizing conclave and conventions to understand what kind of catastrophe the modern development has had on our environment, on our air. And you and I know, living in Delhi, every year how much energy, how much scientific money and everything is involved, and still people are not very happy. So there is a very large body of text which talks about the concerns for the environment, and that if you preserve the animals in the environment, they will in turn protect you and help you survive better.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Tiwari, for joining us. Hiraman Tiwari, Professor of Indian Culture at JNU. Now, history and culture, that is, sorry. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. Fighting rages on in southern Gaza, and the Israeli forces have struck central areas. Russia has forced, in fact, they have claimed, the Russian forces have claimed that they have captured 2 settlements in Ukraine. And Donald Trump's first rally since that incident where he was shot in the ear, he says that he took the bullet for democracy.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. The Israeli army, they've said that they shot down a missile which was launched from Yemen on Sunday, and the Yemeni Houthi movement said that they had fired several missiles at the Israeli city of Eilat. This is after Israel's first public strike against the Iran-aligned group a day earlier. The Houthis have launched missiles and drones at Israel, and they've disrupted global trade through the Red Sea in response to Israel's assault on the Gaza area. Further destabilizing, mind you, the whole conflict that's taking place there in West Asia, in the Palestinian enclave. It's raging on after 9 months, as we know. What's happened is that Israel says that the Houthis have launched 200 attacks against Israel since the Gaza conflict began, and many of these have been intercepted. Most of them have not been deadly. Meanwhile, clouds of black smoke and flames were seen rising in the sky in Yemen's Hodeidah, in the port there, after Israeli fighter jets had struck Houthi military targets in the area a day earlier. The strike on Saturday came a day after a drone launched by the Iranian-backed group hit Israel's economic hub, which is Tel Aviv. Now, Israeli military, the spokesperson, has said that the port had been used by the Houthis to receive weapons and shipments from Iran. And the target, in fact, was more than 1,700 kilometers from Israel. And Sarah Coates is now joining us from Tel Aviv with more on these stories. Sarah, is there a fear, of the Gaza offensive intensifying into a full-blown regional conflict?
Hello there, Mark. That is already being seen, a widening of this war which could potentially further destabilise this region. Speaking specifically here about this recent escalation between Israel and the Yemen-based Houthi rebels. You mentioned it there, that drone shot into Israeli territory right here in Tel Aviv in the early hours of Friday morning, slamming into a residential building, killing one man, injuring a number of other people. Now, in response, we saw that Israeli attack on the port of Hodeidah. Reports coming in saying that there are still fires burning at these oil storage facilities in Yemen as a result of those Israeli attacks. Now, earlier today, the Houthis then sent a surface-to-surface missile toward Israel. It was intercepted just off the coast of the Red Sea city of Eilat, but it did send people running to shelter, air raid sirens ringing out. They were activated over fears that this debris from this shot down surface-to-surface missile, that it could in fact harm people there on the ground. So certainly there already is a fairly major escalation, not just talking about the Houthis, of course, but also on Israel's northern border with Hezbollah. Mark.
Also, Sarah, to what extent, are the elections in the United States being seen as reasons, perhaps, for Israel to intensify efforts on the battlefield to reach its goals before those elections take place?
Well, we do need to remember what we did hear from the former US President Donald Trump, who is, of course, once again running in this election. He came out back in April to say that Israel needs to finish what it started in Gaza and get it over with fast, adding that Israel is losing the PR war. So there is a lot of thought here in Israel that if Donald Trump does indeed take the White House once again, that he will really pressure Israel to get this operation in Gaza finished, given the casualties on that side in Gaza. So certainly we do need to remember, though, what is happening also in the north. Israel is not just fighting in Gaza, but it is also fighting against Hezbollah in the north, and this is why the IDF just a few weeks ago drew up and also approved a battle plan for Lebanon if in fact it gets to that. And there is certainly a lot of concern that this situation in the north could in fact spiral into a wider regional war, just given these daily escalation, tit-for-tat strikes across that border between Israel and Hezbollah, with a fire breaking out just a short while ago in northern Israel at a school after being directly hit by a number of Hezbollah rockets. So certainly a very worrying situation, Mark.
Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv, thank you for joining us. Now some news from Russia, the Russia-Ukraine conflict zone, and Russia and Ukraine exchanged fire overnight. As per the Russian Defense Ministry, the country's air defense systems intercepted and destroyed 8 Ukrainian drones. On the other hand, Ukraine's air defense systems had shot down 35 of the 39 attack drones launched by Russia. After a massive overnight drone and missile attack, Sunday saw the Ukrainian President Zelensky saying that Ukraine needs long-range weapons to protect its cities and troops on the front line from Russian bombs and drones. And as per media reports, Russia has achieved territorial gains on the battlefield. Russian forces, they have captured the village of Rozivka in Ukraine's Luhansk region, and also the village of Pishchane, Nizhane in Kharkiv region. Well, Dasha Chernyshova is now joining us from Moscow with updates on these stories. Dasha, reports say that Russia has made territorial gains on the battlefield. Can you fill us in with the latest information?
That's right. We have the confirmation from the Russian Ministry of Defense that the Russian military have managed to take under their control the village of Rozovka. This is in the Lugansk People's Republic, as well as another settlement which is in the Kharkiv direction. This is Pishchane Nizhne. Now, the Kharkiv direction is the area where Moscow is seeking to create the so-called buffer zone, which will be preventing Russian regions against the strikes from the Ukrainian side with the use of the long-range weapons supplied from the West. We also hearing from the Russian Ministry of Defense that they have used their Iskander Ms to strike the Ukrainian military. They say that they have struck 2 echelons of the Ukrainian armed forces, destroying up to 240 Ukrainian military as well as 60 units of the military equipment. At the same time, the Russian Ministry of Defense also confirmed that they have been striking the warehouses where the Western ammunition is being stored, and they have also managed to destroy 2 ATACMS missiles over the skies in the Kherson region. Those ATACMS were heading towards Crimea, but these are the constant reports that we're getting from the Russian Ministry of Defense. Steady gains on the battlefield, but also the repelled attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces. At the same time, we're also constantly getting reports about the casualties among the civilian population. So on Sunday, the governor of the Kherson region has confirmed that 4 people have been wounded as a result of the shelling of the village of Zhelezne. So certainly the situation is developing, and Russia insists it is been on the upper hand when it comes to the fighting in Ukraine.
Also, Dasha, you know, the Russia-Ukraine conflict is clearly a global issue and clearly an issue also in the US elections. So after 29 months, is there any sign, you know, of Russian people hoping or wanting peace?
Absolutely. There is certainly the understanding in Russia that this operation will have to come to an end. And there are many people who have relatives in Ukraine that have been worried about the situation from the very start, from the 24th of February 2022. But at the same time, you have to understand that the public opinion here has shifted from being split into 2 camps, one supporting, others not supporting. But now the understanding is very clear. This operation, from the point of view of many Russians, has to come to an end, but Russia has to have the upper hand, and Russia has to make sure that this operation ends with guarantees for Russia's security. The public opinion here largely approves of the very fact that if Russia started this, now it has to end it, achieving the goals that have been stated by the Russian president, and that is making sure that Ukraine does not pose a threat to Russia, as well as the Western countries do not pose a threat to Russia with the expansion of NATO eastward. So there is certainly the feeling that this operation will have to come to an end, and there will have to be negotiations, and actually the perception that the West is preparing for the negotiations is growing among many Russians as well as the analysts here.
Dasha Chernyshova, thank you very much for joining us from Moscow. Now, the United States is all immersed, as we know, in an electoral campaign for the Oval Office. The U.S. presidential nominee for the Republican Party, Donald Trump, alongside his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, took the stage at a rally on Saturday. And this was Trump's first public rally since the July 13th assassination attempt against him. Addressing the crowd with a flesh-colored bandage covering his right ear, Trump dismissed allegations about his involvement in Project 2025, calling them misinformation.
I don't know what the hell it is. It's Project 25. He's involved in Project, and then they read some of the things, and they are extreme. I mean, they're seriously extreme. But I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it. But what they do is misinformation and disinformation, and they keep saying, he's a threat to democracy. I'm saying, what the hell did I do for democracy? Last week, I took a bullet for democracy. What did I do against democracy? Crazy.
What's still to come here on DD India News Hour? We're going to be unraveling the Bangladesh quota system, talking to Veena Sikri, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. As the world gears up for the biggest sporting extravaganza, Olympics 2024, we at DD India are all set to bring you reports, reactions and all the latest action from Ground Zero. Watch DD India's super exclusive show, Cheer for Bharat. Only on DD India from July the 22nd at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT. Get ready to cheer for Indian athletes at the Paris Olympics 2024. You're watching DD India News. I'm Mark Lynn. Now, in a game changer, which will definitely have repercussions on the future trajectory of Bangladesh, the country's apex court has struck down the job quota system following days of anti-job quota student protests, which had paralyzed normal life in our neighboring country. Indian students too, who are studying in Bangladesh, were returning home through the border checkposts. So far, 4,500 students, Indian students, have returned to India, and 500 students of Nepal, 38 students of Bhutan, and 1 student from the Maldives too also arrived in India. This report tells us more.
In a big development, the Bangladesh Supreme Court abolished job quota system, which was reinstated by the High Court following which unrest erupted in the country. The country's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government had scrapped the quota system in 2018, but the lower court reinstated it last month. In government jobs, Bangladesh had quota system in which 30% was reserved for family members of Mukti Jodha, that is freedom fighters of 1971. However, after a brief agitation, government abolished the system in 2018. But following an appeal from freedom fighter families, the High Court reinstated the previous quota system in the month of June, which triggered the agitation. Now the Supreme Court of Bangladesh dropped the judgment of the High Court and modified the quota. 93% for merit, 5% for freedom fighter families and 2% for others. The court also appealed to students to go back home after this. The court also said this modification is from the judiciary. The government can take its own decision.
The Supreme Court's Appellate Division, according to Article 104, gave a final solution to this quota system. That is 93% quota for general people, 5% quota for freedom fighters and their kin, 1% for ethnic minority community and 1% for third gender and physically disabled.
Meanwhile, a large number of Indian students pursuing medical studies in Bangladesh are coming back home due to the prevailing situation in the neighboring country.
Since last couple of days, BSF has been facilitating the safe return of Indian students stranded in Bangladesh, and there are over 8,000 students who are enrolled in various subjects in Bangladesh, and the BSF has been trying its best to ensure that these students return safely to their motherland.
The BSF has made all the arrangements at the ICPs for the safe arrival. It is very, very important to make them comfortable. So our officers were there on the ICPs and they talk to them and ensure they feel comfortable.
The BSF has decided to augment resources at the Indo-Bangladesh border and is working in close coordination with the local police to prevent criminal elements from taking any undue advantage. With inputs from Naval Sangh Parmar in Dhaka and Kunal Shinde in Agartala, Shagnik Chakraborty, DD India.
And after that report, joining us now to discuss this development in Bangladesh is Veena Sikri, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Ambassador Sikri, the Supreme Court has scrapped the quota completely, but the court seems to have allowed the government to make its own decisions as well. So do you see the government keeping the 7% reservation? It's going to become a standard, or will they meddle with it?
I think the Supreme Court order is quite clear and quite firm. It does meet the demands of the students. And so I don't see any point from the government to meddle in this or further change it and alter it and further matter of dispute. Now the main issue in Bangladesh is to get the students back into the universities and to get the violence off the streets. Of course, there's been a complete curfew, there have been shoot-at-sight orders, and so the situation today has been calm. There have not been many reports of any violence or incidents, maybe just a few. But what has happened is, and this is the latest update that I have got from within Bangladesh, is that the students have put forward a list of 9 demands. They have asked the government, they've said that they want these 9 demands to be accepted, and then they will be able to fully accept the Supreme Court judgment and go back to universities. Now, these demands it's a long list, and I think there would probably be negotiations between the government and the students' groups. I think these include demands like, an apology back from the Prime Minister to the nation for the killing of students.
Right.
It asks for the resignation of the Home Minister. It asks for the resignation of the Road Transport and Bridges Minister, Obaidul Qadir, who is also the General Secretary of the Awami League party. Then it asks for dismissal of certain senior police officers because of their role in the shooting. It asks for the resignation of the Vice Chancellors and proctors of Dhaka University, Jahangirnagar University, and Rajshahi University. It also asks for compensation for the families of the students who have been killed in the rioting, and to prohibit all partisan politics on campuses, as well as, of course, that all the schools and colleges and universities must be immediately opened, the halls must be opened, the hostels must be opened, and they must go back to study. So this is a long list of demands, which I think there will be negotiation. But what has been a big worry is the participation of the political parties on the streets of Dhaka in these riots. And that has caused a large number of killings because that has caused a lot of violence.
Yes.
So I think
yes, ma'am. But how widespread, is the employment outside the government sector? Or are people, keen on just government jobs for their stability? As the economy of Bangladesh seems to be growing and Bangladesh exports quite a lot, surely there are definitely avenues which are outside the government sector.
Oh, yes. There's a very, very large number of avenues. The Bangladesh economy is a very entrepreneurial economy. The private sector are very much involved. You see the entire ready-made garment sector, which is the single largest sector for Bangladeshi exports to the rest of the world. And Bangladesh is now one of the world's leading countries in ready-made garments exports. This is an entirely private sector private sector driven sector of the economy. And in fact, women are very largely employed in the ready-made garment sector. More than 2 million, maybe now 3 or 4 million women are employed in this sector. So there is a very dynamic sector, but certainly there is a public sector, and there is the BCS, the Bangladesh Civil Services, for which exams are held every year.
Right.
So the two main areas where people are seeking government employment, and as in all countries, including India, government service is considered a prestigious service. It's considered a welcome avenue for liberal arts students from the university. And since higher education has gone up enormously, and a lot of graduates, very large number of graduates from the higher education institutions, so these are the ones who are looking for prestigious jobs in government. Okay. And that is why there's a great interest. And but the thing to recognize is that these for the last 6 years, since 2018, there were no reservations.
Right, there were no reservations, exactly. But Ambassador Sikri, you did mention about the politics. So do you see, normalcy returning, or will the opposition try and exploit the situation to win some popular support and embarrass the government?
Well, I think you're right on that. I think the opposition has been trying very much to exploit the situation, and the feedback is that there's a lot of encouragement to them from external forces outside the country, outside even different continents, urging them to keep up the pressure, and they want to force a regime change through the streets, because the BNP did not take part in the elections. Neither did the Jamaat-e-Islami. They were banned from it because they do not recognize the constitution of Bangladesh as being superior to their party constitution. So these parties, having lost out by not participating in the election, they now want to force a regime change through the streets. This is the biggest factor of worry, and that is why I do hope and expect that the government will join negotiations with the students and urge them to go back to their universities and make the universities as strong centers of learning instead of centers of partisan politics. And I'm sure that this will be achieved over the next couple of days, and without allowing, because if the students are off the streets and students are willing to talk about going back to university and join and reopening the education institutions, then the various political parties who are trying to force regime change, they're isolated and they have no reason to continue the violence. This is key now. These negotiations are the key now.
Yes, you said negotiations are the key, ma'am, but you also mentioned that there are 9 points demands being made by the students. Do you think that the opposition is going to get aligned with these demands? Or, these students themselves, the demands look pretty, I shouldn't be editorializing, but they look legitimate from the point of view of the students, especially after a protest soon that has just happened. So, I mean, the government will probably look at these as talking points.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will, because, you know, as I said, students have always been playing a very important role in the political life of Bangladesh. They have, right from the time of 1971 in the Liberation War, it is these young students who were then teenagers and, you know, in their early 20s, they are the ones who left their studies, left everything and joined the Liberation War. Ever since then, they've been given a very special role of importance in the life of the nation. And now that, you know, they have, it seems from the demands that the students have accepted the Supreme Court verdict, and they're prepared to live with this reservation of, say, 7% maximum, and now have negotiations with the government and have the universities and colleges and schools opened again. So I think this is a good point. It coming after a day when there is comparative peace in Bangladesh, published a list of institutions and TV buildings and government buildings and police stations and jails that were torched, that were, you know, broken into by the opposition parties that joined the violence. And this is a huge list. There's been a tremendous amount of damage to civilian infrastructure and to institutions of learning and medical institutions and jails and so on. So I think this is a tremendous blow for the growth structure of the nation. So they will be, the government will be interested in getting back to normal life and repairing and restructuring whatever has been damaged and destroyed. And of course, the life of the students is most important. So they have to get back their lives, and the families have to be compensated and so on.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Veena Sikri, former Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Thank you for throwing light on the situation with your perspective. Let's take a look at some other stories making the news. 3 people were killed and 8 injured in a landslide near Chirbasa village in Kedarnath in the North Indian state of Uttarakhand on Sunday. Security personnel, including the NDRF and SDRF teams, were deployed. They carried out rescue operations. The combined search operation of Nepal's Armed Police Force and India's National Disaster Response Force continued for the 10th day. A 12-member NDRF team has been deployed to look for passengers of the bus that fell into the Trishuli River, and 62 of the 65 passengers had gone missing after the incident. 25 bodies have been recovered. Well, the Indian Air Force has showcased the Sukhoi Su-30 MKI fighter. It's a fighter plane during that community engagement and ongoing exercise Pitch Black 2024 at the Royal Australian Air Force Base in Darwin. The Indian contingent also interacted with crews from other nations and the Indian diaspora as well in Australia. The Indian Navy's Marine Commandos and the US Navy participated in an interoperability training during the ongoing Rim of the Pacific 2024 maritime exercise in the US state of Hawaii. The US SEALs and the special forces of the other partner nations are paving the way for combined operations towards combating maritime threats. Still to come here on DD India News Hour, the legendary tennis stars Leander Paes and Vijay Amritraj create history by joining the Tennis Hall of Fame. And India secures a comfortable 78-run victory over the UAE in the Women's Asia Cup T20 tournament. BCCI announces $1 million in support of Indian athletes in the Paris Olympics.
As the world gears up for the biggest sporting extravaganza, Olympics 2024, we at DD India are all set to bring you reports, reactions and all the latest action from Ground Zero. Watch DD India's super exclusive show, Cheer for Bharat. Only on DD India from July the 22nd at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT. Get ready to cheer for Indian athletes at the Paris Olympics 2024.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as we know, inaugurated the 46th session of the World Heritage Committee at the Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi today. India is hosting the World Heritage Committee meeting for the first time, and the Prime Minister also took a walk-through of the various exhibitions showcased on the occasion. DD India correspondent Dibendra Mondal finds out more in this report.
The 46th UNESCO World Heritage Committee meeting was inaugurated by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in capital New Delhi on Sunday evening. While inaugurating the event, PM Modi also announced a grant of $1 million to the UNESCO Fund for the Preservation and Conservation of World Heritage.
आज मैं एक और अहम घोषणा कर रहा हूं। भारत यूनेस्को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज सेंटर के लिए $1 मिलियन का कंट्रीब्यूशन करेगा। ये ग्रांट कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग, टेक्निकल असिस्टेंस और वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट्स के कंजर्वेशन में प्रयोग होगी। विशेष रूप से ये पैसा ग्लोबल साउथ के देशों को काम आएगा।
This 10 days of the World Heritage Committee meeting is a cornerstone event where experts and delegates from around the globe converge to evaluate the state of existing World Heritage sites and consider new nominations.
When India held the presidency of the G20 last year, leaders called for the first time for culture to be placed at the heart of the post-2030 agenda for sustainable development. And in this way, India has helped culture gain recognition as a global public good, one that should be included in the Pact for the Future to be adopted by the UN this September. It was also under India's presidency and with UNESCO support that the G20 endorsed the Kashi Culture Pathway, which focuses on the fight against illicit trafficking and the restitution of cultural property.
In this session, the committee will examine the dossiers of 28 sites proposed for inscription on the World Heritage List. The sites will be examined according to category natural, mixed and cultural.
बीते 10 वर्षों में भारत ने एक और आधुनिक विकास के नए आयाम छुए हैं, वहीं विरासत पर गर्व का संकल्प भी लिया है। हमने विरासत के संरक्षण के लिए अभूतपूर्व कदम उठाए हैं। काशी में विश्वनाथ कॉरिडोर हो, अयोध्या में राम मंदिर का निर्माण हो, प्राचीन नालंदा विश्वविद्यालय का आधुनिक कैंपस बनाना हो, देश के कोने-कोने में ऐसे अनेकों काम हो रहे हैं। विरासत को लेकर भारत के इस संकल्प में पूरी मानवता की सेवा का भाव जुड़ा है।
This time, India has nominated the Moidams, the mound burial system of the Ahom dynasty of Assam, to be inscribed into the prestigious list. However, to get to this list is a meticulous process followed by rigorous evaluations by expert advisory bodies. Dibendra Mondal's report for DD India.
So let's take a look at some other stories making news around the world. Car wreckages from a deadly bridge collapse in China's northwest were pulled out on Sunday. The cleanup operations continued for a second day in the Shaanxi province after a flash flood led to the collapse of a highway bridge on Friday, killing at least 12 people. The electric aircraft maker Eve, controlled by Brazil's Embraer, for the first time showcased the full-scale prototype of the flying taxi, which is aimed to obtain certification and enter service in 2026. The longest rowing boat in the world, called the Stamfli 24 Express, is set to take part in the Paris 2024 Olympic torch relay on Sunday ahead of the Olympic Games. It is 40 meters in length and comes in 6 pieces to be assembled. Homegrown silk is powering a successful industry in Egypt's Nile Delta city of Beharia. In small workshops in Naga-owned town, the workers breed worms, they handle cocoons, they extract silk threads, and then they weave carpets by hand from the silk. The finished carpets are then displayed at fairs to be sold, and some are also exported. Let's get to the sports news now. And the former doubles #1 of India, Leander Paes, and the tennis broadcaster, actor Vijay Amritraj, who was also a great player in his time, became the first Asian men to be inducted into the International Tennis Hall of Fame. Paes remains the only Indian till date to win an Olympic medal in tennis. He did so in 1996 in Atlanta, in the singles, that is. Paes won 19 Grand Slam titles from 1999 to 2015. This is in doubles and mixed doubles. Amritraj played from 1970, and he won 15 ATP singles titles and 399 matches, and was ranked as high as 18th in the world. He also helped India reach the Davis Cup finals in 1974 and once again in 1987. And in 1987, India had beaten Sweden as well, which was quite a significant victory. India beat the United Arab Emirates by 78 runs in a Group A clash of the Women's T20 Asia Cup in Dambulla on Sunday. And with this victory, India are all but guaranteed themselves a semi-final spot. India scored 201 runs for the loss of 5 wickets. The captain Harmanpreet Kaur scored 66, while the wicketkeeper Richa Ghosh, as unbeaten 64, took the Indian side to their highest T20 score. In response, the UAE could only muster a score of 123 runs for the loss of 7 wickets in the stipulated 20 overs. India will take on Nepal on Tuesday. In a big boost for athletes, the BCCI Secretary Jai Shah announced the package of $1 million to the Indian Olympic Association for the campaign of athletes. And this is at the 2024 Paris Olympics. This announcement came as the Paris Olympic Games are set to begin from July 26th. And as many as 117 athletes will represent India at the Olympics. There will be 140-strong support staff as well, making it a 257-member contingent. Well, Matteo Berrettini eased to victory to win the title at the Swiss Open in Gstaad on Sunday. He beating Quinton Hales in the final in straight sets. Berrettini took less than an hour to claim the win after struggling with injury and form in recent times, and he looked more than comfortable in that 6-3, 6-1 victory. Well, tennis great Rafael Nadal has lost in straight sets to Nuno Borges in the Swedish Open final in Bastad on Sunday. Borges, in fact, defeated the 22-time Grand Slam winner Nadal 6-3, 6-2 quite easily in the summit clash that lasted for an hour and 27 minutes. Borges broke Nadal's serve 5 times to win his maiden tour level title. He is only the second Portuguese player to clinch a trophy at the ATP Tour since João Sousa. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lynn. From all of us here in Delhi, thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.